this evening. Patrick, Ryan Day had his radio show a little bit earlier on today on these very airwaves that you're listening to right now. And he was talking about, some new guys getting some game reps over the last weekend against Grambling.
These guys work. I'll give them that. They're working. We got to continually push and grind and get better in a lot of areas. We got to keep pushing, but they don't mind working, and that's a good thing. And I think to your point, when you sign yourself in a game, people see you play, you get some feedback being in the game. It's just good for the whole program. So that was a bounce in everybody's step this week.
I mean, think about this, Pat. And I know that we get nitpicky and everything around here, and that's fine. It's totally okay to do. That's our jobs, and that's a lot of Ohio State fans that the same way. Like, you grow up, you're a kid, whether you're an Ohio State fan or not, you get offered by Ohio State. To get your first actual taste of being a Buckeye in the horseshoe, even if it's against Grambling, it's something that a lot of people never get to do in their life. And so what we get most people, about 95%, 98% of the people never get to do in our life. We never got to do it. Reimer never got to do it. Most of you out there listening never got to do it. It's a really cool opportunity for those guys. And so for them to seize that opportunity and to be able to go out there and continue to pitch a shutout on Saturday and put 35 points up on the scoreboard if they're playing offense, that's a pretty big deal for these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about we always think about the highly recruited guys and the guys that, if you follow recruiting at all, their names, Jeremiah Smith and these guys that play pretty early on in their careers, even like an Arvell Reese, who didn't really play as a freshman, but then got on the field last year. But think about some of the guys who they bring in, because Ohio State's good about this, of identifying maybe the diamond in the rough guys. And maybe you go out there and eventually you get on the field and you become a key contributor. Mm-hmm. But maybe you don't, and you get your free education at Ohio State and you go on to do whatever else. But you could say, and then walk-ons too, I got to play in a game. There's
no more walk-ons.
You're right, actually. We can't call them that.
No.
The players formerly
not allowed to say that.
Players formerly known as walk-ons. They got to play in a game at Ohio Stadium for the Buckeyes. And, conversely, this weekend we'll see guys that a lot of them grew up in Ohio rooting for the Buckeyes. Now they get a chance to play against them. So awesome that you get that opportunity. I know I talk to people sometimes and why do they play these games? Especially people who don't follow it super closely.
Yep.
Just want to watch the big games. Why do they play these games against MAC teams or against Grambling or whatever? And it's that's part of the reason why. There are other reasons, but that's a big one as well.
Yeah, so if you listen to any of the Ryan Day post-game comments, he's always talking about, we got to look at the film. We got to look at the film. We got to break it down, right? What actually goes in to evaluating those position groups when they look at the film after games?
So, what we do on Sundays is meet with the offense. We go through that, and the same with the defense. And we go by position. And the position coach will go through each one of those guys that played, how many plays he played, whether he graded out over 80% was a champion. And then, from there, we kind of go and sort of sum up, how the unit played, how they played as, offense and defense. And then we have our champions meeting to go through all that, recognize the ones that were. And I say it's feedback. It's feedback on your preparation, on your process, from your meetings to your preparation to how you did on the field, all the walkthroughs, your individual period. Between your coach and the player, it's their responsibility to grade out a champion. That's the goal. But then also the effort. And so, we say there's two things. We want to be the hardest playing team in the country and grade out a champion. And that really comes down to your effort that you give and then doing your job.
I don't know how much money they would charge to be a fly on the wall or in those meeting rooms on Sunday when they're breaking down film, but that's something that I would like to do in my life. and I know it's very restricted access, and I know that it's a very close circle thing that they do.
Right.
I would love to watch film with those guys to see what they're watching and how they're grading players' breakdowns.
Just ask Mike if you can ride over with him sometime. I'm sure he gets into the Woody.
He can. I think he's got a card.
Yeah.
Bob's got a card. He's got thumbprint access. He can get over there.
That's a good point.
Maybe I can sneak in his shirt.
I don't know.
It would look odd, but
I don't know about that. Yeah. Do you think, this just occurred to me as I was listening to Ryan talk about that stuff, that the fact that he is a national championship winning coach, when they have these conversations, the Sunday conversations, the Monday conversations, I'm not talking the guys that helped win a national championship last year, but the younger guys, things like that. Do you think all of a sudden you sit up a little bit straighter and listen a little bit more when Ryan Day's in front of the room?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, naturally, I think all right, this team just won a national championship. And again, in your like hypothetical, if you're a freshman coming in, right? Like take, I don't know, say for example, if you're Bo Jackson or you're Riley Pettijohn, you come in after they won a national championship. And I know a lot of these guys were actually here during the national championship run. But I think you probably do sit at attention, Pat. Or if you come in the transfer portal like a Logan George or
C.J. Donaldson.
Phillip Daniels, right? Like name your guy who came in. I think you probably do sit up straighter and listen, be more attentive in meetings, knowing the fact that your head coach and this coaching staff for the majority won a national championship last year.
Yeah, and not that I didn't pay close attention to what Ryan was saying in press conferences and stuff last year. It's part of my job. But I do find myself, like, at times as he's talking when we're in press conferences or the Wednesday night lightning rounds, just like, it's a national championship winning coach. Like, it was different with Urban because he had won before at Florida. So as soon as he came in, he had that gravitas, right?
Yeah.
But
he had a certain amount of pull.
Yeah, right. And he was Urban Meyer. Like, I'd watched him on TV win 2 national championships, including one against Ohio State. Yeah. But Ryan was a guy, and look, Ryan is probably the most, like, down-to-earth, just normal guy who happens to be a football coach that's really good at his job. But I do think there's something to that. My first time thinking that, even after the whole offseason, was a Big Ten media days, and just sort of standing there kind of behind everybody and being like, that guy won a national championship.
More gravitational pull to him, you think?
Yeah, I think so. And look, we talked about afterwards, like it being out in Vegas, I think there wasn't the crowd of media people that there might have been. But it'd be interesting to talk to some of the younger guys about, like, you know, do you think about this as you're sitting there listening to?
Well, they probably don't know any different if they're just coming in.
No, but just like any of these guys that were on the staff last year, or even Matt Patricia, multiple times, you know, is it just so normalized to them, to like football guys or whatever, or do they sit there and think about
like this is greatness right here?
Yes,
like this is you are etched in history.
Yeah, and like you're talking to James Laurinaitis, who's, you know, has like accomplished all these things as a player. You know, just this.
Will not tell you that.
Well, he will not, definitely not. But does that ever cross your mind as you're sitting there in the linebacker room listening?
This guy was pretty good.
More than pretty good.
Here was Ryan Day, and I don't know how much you took away from it, Pat, on Saturday, but Ohio State ran tempo a good amount.
They did, yes.
Which caught my eye, but here was Ryan Day talking about the benefits of playing fast. Yeah, and there's a lot of benefits to playing fast, but there's pluses and minuses to everything, and said this before, when you're exclusively one thing, eventually, people are going to dive onto that. There's so too many great coaches nowadays. They're going to make adjustments and get things to their advantage. So I think with the more things you can do, whether you line up in bigger sets and spread them out, or line up with little guys and bring them in, playing with different tempos. There's just a lot of things that we can do to put stress on the defense to make sure we're dictating.
I think you saw a big difference from the way that the offense was run against Texas, because it was very slowed down. You didn't have a whole lot of plays in the game offensively. And then you saw the game against Grambling, and all of a sudden you're going tempo, you're doing a lot of different things, you're not getting in the huddle. I don't know exactly if the play calls were being had from the sideline, if it was signaling, or if Julian Sand is just getting the plays in his helmet and he's able to relay that to his teammates. But that was a big difference that I noticed from week 1 to week 2, Pat. I mean, given the circumstances, again, it's Grambling against Texas, so take it as you may. But at the same time, I think it was a notable difference in the tempo of Ohio State's offense.
Well, the biggest thing, as Ryan talked about there, was being able to do both. And I think you saw that last year. Like, most of the regular season, they played at a pretty slow pace.
Yeah, they did.
One of the slowest in the country. But when they needed,
and it was a huge talking point last year.
Oh, yeah, because it was so different than what they'd done. Yeah. But then when they needed to go quick in the playoff, when they needed to, they wanted to put some points on the board in the first halves of some of those games, they could do it. And, we never saw them in the need for like a 2-minute drill. But, Will Howard
always talks about that middle 8.
Yes.
Always, constantly. Oh, yeah. Like, it'll come up. I don't know if it's going to be Washington week or if it's going to be this week, whenever he talks about that. But that is critical moments for Ohio State. The last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half.
Yeah. But I think the ability, and he talked about it with different personnel. He's mentioned it this year with the tight ends and being able to go into different looks because you have so many tight ends you can trust to do different things. He mentioned the little guys, which I think was a shot at me personally. But no, just having personnel, having scheme, and you see it on the defensive side of the ball too with what Matt Patricia's able to do, and some of the guys that, getting Devin Sanchez in there and their dime packages and stuff like that. So that's important. And I think maybe we didn't talk about that enough of that just versatility that you've got on both sides of the ball to be able to kind of, on offense, dictate things the way you want it, and on defense, react to what the offense is doing.
You'd be like Brett Bielema and just take your time during defensive changes. Be like, you know what? We get it all the time in the world.
Put the arms out.
Yeah, to be able to make subs, and we're going to do that. Spencer.